Call the school board meeting for Tuesday, September 10th, 2019 to order. Begin each meeting with an invocation, which will be led tonight by School Board Member Terry Castillo, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Jose Gonzalez, our Director of Finance. Our national anthem will be performed by Cassandra Mercado, who's a senior at Topodalaga High School. Mission statement will be, we're going to get all the finance people. Sarah Graber will read our mission statement, our Chief Financial Officer. Budget night. And the translation services will be led by Belinda Reyes. So if you would rise with me and silence your cell phones. And Ms. Castillo?
Yes. Let's bow our heads. I'm going to be doing a prayer for protection, which is a prayer that we do at my church. The light of God surrounds me. The love of God enfolds me. The power of God protects me. The presence of God watches over me. The mind of God guides me. The life of God flows through me. The laws of God direct me. The joy of God uplifts me. The strength of God renews me. The beauty of God inspires me. Wherever I am, God is, and all is well. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Cassandra. Okay.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's regular, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Great job. You may be seated.
Good evening. The mission statement for the School District of Osceola County is inspiring all learners to reach their highest potential as responsible, productive citizens.
Good afternoon. My name is Belinda Reyes, and I'm here to provide translation services. Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Belinda Reyes y estoy aquí para proveer servicios de traducción.
Thank you, Mother. Just to a comment portion of the meeting from the board. Ms. Castillo, do you have any comments this evening?
Yeah, as most of you know, I started my MBA program, and I've been going to school, and it's very exciting. But I wanted to note that the first class that I took was basically on how to build a strategic plan, because my program feels that it's really important for companies to really focus on where they're going so they can be successful. So with that, I am very excited to see that we are going to finally take a look at our strategic plan, which will be our guide for the next 3 years. So I'm very excited about that.
Great. Mr. Soto?
Y'all lucky I don't have any.
I have just a brief comment with the potential hurricane the other day with the shelters we had open. We had a tremendous amount of help and support from our staff. I just want to thank them for all the work they did to get those shelters open, to keep them open, to feed the people that were in the shelters and make a bad situation be palatable for them. So, Dr. Pace, please pass that on to your crew.
You stole mine. That was going to be mine. Great job to our staff. Way to go. I know nothing happened, but I saw Senator Scott interviewed on TV, and they asked him what he had learned in his time as governor with all the hurricanes, and he said to over-prepare was the right thing to do.
Exactly.
We certainly over-prepared, but I think it was the right thing to do. So thank you, Dr. Pace and staff.
So mine was actually going to be the same, so I'll just leave that alone. But I do want to just add that I was very grateful and very impressed with Rhonda Blake and the work that she did in our joint intergovernmental meeting. And I just want to say publicly that I appreciated all the work that she did, the preparation and the quality of the presentation she provided for the county commission.
And I'll pile on to your comments on Rhonda. She did a great job today. So I appreciate that very much, too. Thank you, Tim. Dr. Pace?
Said it all.
Great.
All righty. We have a proclamation of Hispanic Heritage Month photo contest. Ms. Reyes?
Good afternoon, Chairman Thacker, board members, Dr. Pace, leadership. Hispanic Heritage Month is celebrated between September 15th and October 15th, and this should be an exciting month. The Multicultural Education Department is sponsoring the Vision 2020, Honoring Our Past, Thriving in the Present, and Preparing for the Future photo contest for students of any race or ethnicity to submit a picture capturing how they envision Hispanic contributions in our community's past, present, or future. Details can be found in our district website, and a presentation of awards will take place October 15th. Mr. Booth, this will be of special interest to you since there will be food to be had.
Why is she looking at our
We also encourage students to submit art or essays for Florida First Lady DeSantis Hispanic Heritage Month contest, paying tribute to Hispanic leaders who play prominent roles in public service. The theme is celebrating public service, and students can apply directly through the FLDOE site for those contests. Without further ado, with me today are the chairman and co-chair of our ELL Parent Leadership Council Executive Board for the district to read the proclamation. Co-chair Ahmed El-Ghanemi will read the proclamation in English, and Chairman Alfonso Ramos will read the proclamation in Spanish. Gentlemen.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Yeah, the proclamation is the National Hispanic Heritage Month, starting from September 15 to October 15, 2019, whereas the Hispanic community has a long and important history of commitment to our nation's core value, and whereas the numerous contribution of Hispanic Americans have helped shape our community and positively impacted our nation, and whereas we applaud the accomplishments of Hispanic Americans, and now, therefore, the School Board of Osceola County, Florida proclamation the month of September 15th through October 15th, 2019 as National Hispanic Heritage Month, and encourages all citizens to recognize the importance of Hispanics in creating and building this great nation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Alfonso Neten Ramos. I am chairperson of the ISO program Parent Concilio. I will read the proclamation in Spanish. Proclamación. Mes Nacional de la Herencia Hispana. 15 de septiembre al 15 de octubre de 1919. Considerando que la comunidad hispana tiene un largo e importante historial de compromiso con los valores fundamentales de nuestra nación, y considerando que las numerosas contribuciones de los hispanoamericanos han ayudado a moldear nuestra comunidad e impactado positivamente a nuestra nación, y considerando que nosotros aplaudimos los logros de los hispanos americanos y Ahora, por lo tanto, la Junta Escolar del Condado de Osceola, Florida, proclama del 15 de septiembre al 15 de octubre del 2019 como el Mes Nacional de la Herencia Hispana. Y exhorta a todos los ciudadanos a reconocer la fusión importante de los hispanos de crear y desarrollar esta gran nación. Firma la doctora Debra Pencer, superintendente de la escuela, y Clarence Tucker, presidente de la Junta Escolar. A la fecha. Gracias.
Gracias.
No, I wanted to say it. Dang it.
¿Qué quieres decir? ¿Moción para aprobar?
Ah, there we go. Segundo. I did it.
Okay, that now submitted for motion de approbation.
I think I have a motion and a segunda to approve the proclamation. Any further questions or comments?
Ms. Castillo and myself.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Ms.
Do we
Castillo.
have to actually, seriously, do we have to say it in English, or are we good? Okay. Okay.
That's right. No. Motion by Ms. Castillo with a second by Mr. Booth to approve. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you all very much.
Thank you both.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Brings us to our public comment portion of the meeting. And if anybody would like to address the board, there are some yellow sheets in the back, and I do not have any, right? So seeing nobody jumping up and running to the table, we will close that portion of the meeting, and we will now recess. Somebody getting up?
No,
Okay.
she won't.
Okay. We will recess for our public hearing on budget.
Good evening again. I believe you should each have a binder that Tanya left for you. If you flip to the back of it, you do have a copy of the PowerPoint presentation in the back as well.
Thank you.
So tonight,
It's the same one we did, right? Is this the same one we did?
very similar. Yes.
You're going to explain to us what a bill is?
One more time.
Okay, we'll get it eventually.
I know this isn't just the second time many of you have heard this. All right, so tonight is the final public hearing on the proposed millage rates and the annual budget for fiscal year 2019-20. Tonight's public hearing will include remarks regarding the proposed millage and budget. There will be an opportunity for public and board member comment. We'll request that you adopt a resolution setting the proposed total millage levy to support the annual budget, and we'll also request that you adopt a resolution approving the annual budget as presented. So TRIM, Truth in Millage legislation, was enacted in 1980, and the requirements are detailed under Section 200.065 of Florida statutes. The statute dictates the form, size, and placement of budget advertisements, as well as the order of business during the budget hearings. TRIM does require 2 public hearings for open discussion of the millage rates and the proposed budgets of all taxing authorities. So what is a mill? A property tax levy of $1 per $1,000 of taxable property value. The Florida Education Finance Program, or the FEFP, is the mechanism by which state and local funds are allocated to Florida school districts. The Florida legislature sets the required local effort millage and the prior period funding adjustment millage that have to be levied by the school board. The school board must levy the required local effort millage and the prior period funding adjustment millage in order to receive any state funding under the Florida Education Finance Program. The total proposed millage related to school funding for the 2019-20 school year is 6.240 mils. This millage will generate revenue for the general operating and capital outlay funds. As previously mentioned, the millage rates are determined by the Florida legislature, and this is the maximum millage that the school board is allowed to levy without a specific voter-approved referendum. The district must levy the required local effort and the prior period funding adjustment in order to receive approximately $294.8 million in state FEFP funding. In addition, we must levy the full basic discretionary millage, to receive $16.4 million in compression funding from the state. The proposed total millage rate related to school funding is 6.240 mils, representing a decrease of 0.171 mils when compared to the 2018-19 rate. The reduction in the RLE from 4.161 to 3.984 mils equates to a reduced local tax levy of $5.2 million when applied to the current tax roll. As required by TRIM, we must compare the proposed millage rate to the rollback rate. The rollback rate is the millage rate that would generate the same amount of revenue as last year if applied to the current year's adjusted taxable value. Under TRIM, the rollback rate is the basis for determining if tax rates have increased or decreased. So this next slide compares the proposed millage rates to the rollback rates. The current state law rollback rate is 3.8614 mils. The current proposed state law millage rate for 1920 is 3.992 mils. The proposed rate is 3.38% more than the rollback rate. The rollback rate for the total millage is 5.9465 mils. The proposed total millage rate is 6.240 mils, and the proposed total rate is 4.94% greater than the rollback rate. The Osceola County tax levy will increase by $17.1 million for school-related taxes in the 2019-20 year as compared to the prior year. While the millage rate decreased, the tax roll is up 12.8% over the prior year, thus generating the net increase. So how are property taxes calculated? The taxable value of a homeowner's property equals the assessed value as determined by the Osceola County Property Appraiser's Office, less the $25,000 homestead exemption where applicable. The homestead exemption is an amount that is exempt from ad valorem taxes. The amount is established by law for properties used as the owner's primary residence and is typically $25,000. The portion of property tax related to school funding equals the taxable value divided by 1,000 times the school district millage rate. Therefore, in this example, a homeowner with an assessed value of $125,000 with the homestead exemption will pay $624 of school-related ad valorem property tax to Osceola County. So how will this impact taxpayers in our county? This slide illustrates the changes in school-related property taxes for an Osceola County homeowner over the last several years. In this example, a home valued at $205,000 in 2015 would have generated roughly $1,306.98 in school-related property tax. If the owner qualified for Save Our Homes, by the 2019-20 school year, the assessed value of that same home would be $219,285. Based on that valuation, the school-related property tax would be $1,212.37. This is a decrease of $7 from the 2018 tax year and a 4-year cumulative decrease of $94.61. So now let's change focus to the budget. The key items in the budget have been shared with you in previous workshops and presentations. Based on current FTE projections, FEFP and local tax revenues for the 2019-20 budget are $27.4 million greater than the prior year. Funding per student will increase by $211 or 2.95% over the prior year. And I'll just remind you that this increase does include the Best and Brightest program, which was not part of the FEFP in the prior year, and that accounts for $97 or 1.36% of this per student funding increase. This next slide shows our long-range forecast. The district closed the 18-19 school year with a surplus in the general fund as budgeted. The proposed budget presented tonight also includes a surplus for the 19-20 school year. Based on state funding projections, we're anticipating minimal increases in per-student funding for the following years in this long-range forecast. Careful monitoring of budgetary resources will continue to remain a top priority to ensure financial sustainability through any future funding shortfalls. So this is the district's total budget in summary form. The general fund is the main fund from which most operating expenditures are paid. In addition, tonight you'll be approving budgets for the debt service fund, which is used to pay for the outstanding bonds of the district, the capital projects fund, which accounts for major construction and renovation projects, the special revenue fund, which consists of food service and federal grants, and finally the internal service fund, which accounts for the district's health insurance, property casualty, and workers' compensation programs. So the total tentative budget is $1,257,141,521. This next slide represents the annual budget at the level of detail that you'll be adopting tonight. This is the same level of detail that you approve budget amendments at throughout the year. So, Mr. Chairman, now time for public comment.
This is a public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to address the board on the budget or the millage? Hearing and seeing none, we will close the public comment portion of the meeting and turn it back over to you, sir.
Time for the resolutions. So, first one, we recommend that the board adopt Resolution 20-003, setting the required local effort, prior period funding adjustment, discretionary operating, and capital outlay millage rates for 2019-20 as follows. Required local effort, 3.984 mils. Prior period funding adjustment, 0.008 mils. Discretionary operating, 0.748 mils. And capital outlay, 1.5 mils, for a total of 6.240 mils. The total millage rate to be levied exceeds the rollback rate by 4.94%. And this resolution does require a roll call vote.
Yes.
Mr. Soto?
Yes.
Mr. Weismeyer?
Yes.
Mr. Thacker?
Yes.
Mr. Goodman?
Yes.
Thank you. Next, we have Resolution 20-004, adopting the tentative budget in the amount of $1,257,141,521. And this also requires a roll call vote.
Ms. Castillo?
Yes.
Mr. Soto?
Yes.
Mr. Weismeyer?
Yes.
Mr. Thacker?
Yes.
Mr. Goodman?
Yes.
Thank you all for your continued support. This does conclude our public hearing.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Jose. Thank you to your
Every
teams.
time, every year.
I'm going to understand this millage trim thing one of these days after about 14
I had
times.
to go back to graduate school to understand it.
That will conclude the public hearing. We will go ahead and adjourn that and reconvene the regularly scheduled school board meeting. Brings us to our agenda are there any agenda modifications?
I have one.
Okay.
Yes, I have one
And
as
it-
well.
Don't keep it a secret.
Let Dr. Pace go.
Chairman and members of the board, with your permission, we'd like to add agenda item 18.02 as a blue sheet as indicated in your printed agenda and also identified in the online agenda at this time. It would be asking for your approval of the modification of the 2019-2020 academic calendar, permitting us to identify the 2 days that we missed for Hurricane Dorian as non-staff, non-student attendance days.
Nobody will be happy about that. Mr. Chairman, my agenda modification will be under new business. I would like to talk about a protocol for our schools with AC failures. I know that the way that the schools are designed now, locked doors, no windows open. When we have AC failures, I think we've got to talk about what we do in those instances. In the old days, when I went to Ross Jeffries, if the AC didn't work, you rolled open the windows and you kicked the door open. We don't allow teachers to do that anymore. So I think we've got to talk about maybe what we can do when we have AC failures at these new design schools.
Okay.
I have one modification under new business. I would like to bring for discussion to this board our policy on air conditioning and temperatures in our schools.
Okay.
Can we?
We don't have to accept
that.
these.
Yeah, you don't have to, you can vote down if you want. Mine should be quick. Phil's might take long.
I need a motion.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Booth with a second by Mr. Weishauer to approve the consent agenda as well as the three modifications, the addition of 18.02 and the discussions on AC protocol and the AC temperature sets. Board, any further comments or discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, motion carries 5-0. Brings us down to our regular agenda, item 14.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion for item 1403.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Booth with a second by Mr. Soto to approve item 14.03 on the regular agenda. Board, any comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, motion carries 5-0. 15 point,
Chairman, I would make a motion to approve 15.03 with a brief comment.
okay.
Second for discussion.
I have a motion by Mr. Weishauer with a second by Mr. Booth to approve item 15.03. Mr. Weishauer, you have a comment?
Yes, sir. Thank you. I just wanted to use this as an opportunity to point out, in light of the conversation we'll have tonight, which I look forward to having, this is the school board making an additional $2.8 million investment into increasing the air conditioning capacity of one of our schools, which shouldn't be lost, because as we're trying to work through all of these pieces and parts, we are also being very intentional with the board of making sure we're upgrading systems and the process by which we make sure that we are maintaining our schools. So just want to make sure we pointed that out tonight.
Thank you.
Board, Tim, did you, or Ricky, did you have a comment too?
I did not know. I was
Oh, okay.
seconding when I knew there was discussion.
Okay.
Pointing that out.
Any other comments or questions? Board, hearing none. Have a motion by Mr. Weishauer with a second by Mr. Booth to approve item 15.03. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries 5-0. Dr. Pace, your strategic plan?
Yes, sir, board members, I had not planned to walk through the entire thing with you because it is what we have been previously reviewing. You will see, though, how it's all come together to include your operational beliefs, the district vision and mission statement, as well as the 5 goal statements, strategies, metrics, and key activities. In addition to the items that you have here, internally, the staff has prepared specific milestones that I'll be monitoring through the stock take process throughout the year, so that when we report to you biannually in January and again in June, we can show you exactly what we have done and accomplished and how things are going in terms of working toward meeting these metrics. It is a 3-year plan, as we have completed before. I just will remind our community that this came about based on discussions that you all had in the community with our internal and external stakeholders, as well as your review of the data and your own strategic goals and initiatives for how we move forward as a district. And now it's up to the team, once approved by the board, along with the budget, to make sure that these things are guiding and driving our work throughout the school year. Happy to answer any questions.
Great work. I think we might have just some discussion on 3B coming forward, but we'll keep
I'd like to kick off the discussion real quick by just, first of all, stating that, I'm very proud of the work that the district and this board has put into this. It's just a great team effort. The communication was outstanding to get, the content of, the strategic plan. But I also want to commend that, ever since you've been our superintendent, Dr. Pace, the presentation of the information and how it's cataloged and put out there for the public and for us to look at and understand and read, it's just been superb. It's just really good. Like corporate quality.
Our community relations team does a fantastic
They
job.
do.
You
They
help to
do.
provide the content and the input, and we do,
I just think
they
it's-
take it and turn it into life.
And I think that that is important too. You know, sometimes you have good content, but it deserves its proper presentation. And so, you know, I just wanted to express at least my appreciation for your efforts and how pleased and happy I am and proud of the work that you do.
And board members, we will have additional copies if there's what you want to share, but more importantly, Dana has prepared a two-page flyer that you can have multiple copies of, so that as you're engaging with stakeholders in the community once approved, you'll have that as your tool.
Perfect.
And I just have a comment to add to this. Ms. Castillo mentioned in her board comments about the importance of a strategic plan. And having worked for a pretty big company who drove and used a strategic plan to really run their business, something that Dr. Pace does better than anybody I've ever seen is when you have a conversation with her and you talk about doing something, she goes, item 2.A-B, this is what the strategic plan says we're going to do.
Yeah.
So it's not a piece of paper. It is not a document, and she and her staff run this district by the strategic plan. I really believe that. I know she does that because she quotes it to me too many times. She may be wrong. I don't know. I don't know what item 4-2B is, but I take her word for it. So I think it does make a difference, and I appreciate that.
If I may add also, Mr. Chair, I think that everybody who engages with the staff and all board members included as well understand the importance of having this plan. I've been looking at it even before I sat on this chair. I thought it actually guided me, and the reason why I wanted to sit on this board was by looking at the strategic plan. But I would encourage publicly our outside stakeholders, our parents, even our students to go ahead and take a look at this, because it will guide the conversation. You can really see the strategic plan, just like Mr. Thacker said. It is a living document, but you can see the strategic plan when you walk through the halls of our schools and when you have conversations with people on the staff. So I think that it's important for us not just to have it and speak on it here, but also for our community leaders and our community members to really dive into it so they can see why it is that we manage the district the way that we do.
And we do need to vote on it today, too. Go ahead.
Ms. Castillo, I think your comments were perfect, to be honest with you, and I appreciate them. And I would just maybe add to that by saying that in light of what you just shared, this could be an opportunity for Dana's team to begin to take pieces and parts of the strategic plan and begin to utilize and share those through social media, so that people are very aware of the approach that the school board's taking and moving the district from good to great. I think your comments are perfect for a segue into that.
Yes, thank you.
Only thing I would, ditto all you guys' comment, that this is fantastic, obviously, and I think, like you said, if we live by it, that creates more buy-in from staff. It creates more buy-in when we have our strategic planning meetings, and we've really concentrated and worked hard on those. I would say, though, if we're going to have Mr. Soto's discussion, that we might actually have it now or hold off, because we might have a hard target to meet if we have that discussion later.
We can have that discussion, man.
It's pretty obvious what I'm going to be speaking
Yeah, that's
about.
right. Yeah.
I mean,
It has the potential to impact you know what, Mr. Booth, that was a good catch.
I'm going to give that to Mr. Weissteiner.
Do you want
I'm not
to,
taking credit for it.
we don't have a motion on the floor yet, so we can start.
We could just postpone the motion until.
Let's just have your discussion.
Let's have your discussion.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So so I have to give some historical background and, just take it by step to where we're at, right? And please understand that this is the perception of just one individual, one board member, and that the input and the data and, my observations are extremely limited, right? So we'll just start with that caution, especially when it comes to the historical portion of my discussion. But I think that after that, I have enough to go ahead and justify why I'm bringing this up. All right, so first of all, since I've been on the school board, the whole issue of air conditioning has never been, setting the temperatures and control of the temperatures away from the actual people who are using the space. Has never really been brought up formally. At least not to me, and on my radar, it never caused a blip. It wasn't until very recently when the proposal of looking at, a policy where the people in those working spaces are no longer going to be controlling the environment, their temperature, that it even became a point of interest to this board member or something that needed to be addressed. The justifications that were put forth by the district, by superintendent, in order to go ahead and address, well, at least it looked to me as though the purpose was to establish a policy which would be an efficient use of our resources that will also cut costs and allow us for savings for things that we feel are very, very important in the operating budget. Fine. I thought it was. I thought everything was done appropriately, and that the proposal was put forth, and that we approved it. I mean, at least we went ahead with the changes, which were currently in place. Having these changes been in effect, as opposed to the previous years that I've been a school board member, there's been an exponential amount of data that's come to me from the staff, from teachers in particular, and students alike, that this policy is not working in the sense that it's creating a comfortable environment for them to work in. So I'm at the point right now where, from where I sit, that there's a balancing here as to whether we are achieving, whether the benefits from this policy that we've adopted, whether they've actually materialized as we thought they would, and whether there's worth, whether when we balance it with the discomfort, not just that, but there's other side effects that come from it too, that come from the loss of control of one's, work environment. There's a lot of things. It's not just the heat. It's also the ability of not being able to do anything about it, feeling that there's no response to their concern, or the general thing like, my comfort is not important to saving money or something else. So when we put all of those things together, and that's what the most recent data has brought to me, is that I think that it's appropriate for us to consider this policy, and I will go further that as barring more discussion, and I'm open to the idea. As I stand right now, I would favor rescinding the policy altogether, and in order to come up with a new policy, be able to include all of those variables that probably were not really looked at before because we didn't have that experience, and addressing them ahead of time, and maybe tailoring a policy that would work a lot better than the one that we have currently, because the feedback that I'm getting on my little radar is that it's not working. And so because of that, I bring up this as new business. I ask that this board has discussion and considered my proposal to rescind the policy and give direction to the school district in order to take all of these new variables into account in developing a new policy if that's what the board wishes to do.
Mr. Booth?
Yeah, so I brought this up last meeting because, again, I'm fine still with 75, 76. The problem is we're not getting there. Number two is I'm not getting the reaction from staff that I think that I should be getting classrooms fixed. I want a teacher to feel like she can say, my classroom is 82 or 83 degrees and it's going to be 75 tomorrow. I'm not getting that. And I brought it up last meeting, August, whatever that was, 20th, still not happening. I've got getting reports of gyms being overheated when we're inviting our public in for games. Come on, let's get this straight. I don't mind saving money by cutting the air down, but it's got to be at that rate. We can't just keep saying that it is and we're working on it and we're doing it. Do it. I'm to that point. I'm tired of getting emails, tired of getting calls, tired of talking about this. It's an easy fix, I think. I'm not talking about AC failures. I'm not talking about schools that have construction going on. I'm talking about I want staff to feel like, teachers at a school to feel like if their classrooms are 82, that when they call somebody about it, it's going to be checked and it's going to be put back down to 75. And if we can't get that done, we just got to start kicking the air back down. There's a difference between setting a thermostat and what the actual temperature is. I don't care what the thermostat setting says. It is what the reading is in an individual classroom. And I'm to the point with Mr. Soto, I don't know if I just want to say, turn on the air on and make it 50 degrees. I get where we're going here, but let's stop being so hard on getting the problem rectified, because I've been talking, it's September the 10th or 9th, whatever it is, 10th, I guess. And I brought this up on the 20th, and I don't feel like it's being addressed, because I'm getting the same people telling me the same things. And I'm even getting now, again, like I said, the athletic facilities. I can't even go to a basketball game or whatever inside the gym, a volleyball game, because it's 85 degrees in there. Turn it down. Make it comfortable. Somebody there, the principal or somebody, needs to have control. If it's not working, go and turn it down. I don't, I'm to the point, I'm over this. Staff this, district says this, and the school staff says this. People want to be comfortable. But I know we need to be aware of what we're doing on saving money, and that's why I said we should talk about this now, because I think the target of 5% is going to be really hard if we don't keep the air up. But I can tell you, the last thing I'll say, every teacher, and I know a lot because my wife happens to be one too, every teacher I ask, and I say, well, you know what? This is how we're trying to work on giving you a raise. I can tell you, not one of them has said, I want $500 and I'll be in an 82-degree classroom. Every one of them has said, keep your $500, give me a comfortable classroom. So that's my anecdotal research, I guess you would call it, Mr. Soto, and I'm going to go with that.
Well, I'll just add briefly another thing, and then, because as we develop this conversation, there's some more things. What Mr. Booth mentioned is that, this policy had the unintended effect of, making us the proverbial bad guy, or to have, the staff and, facilities, be the bearer of bad news, or be the person that's enforcing. That's the thing about a policy, is that you're enforcing. And we have a workforce of professionals. I mean, I don't doubt that there may be a teacher or two that may blast it at 50, but I would place my bets that, most of our employees are very conscientious about how they use our resources, about turning off the lights and not overusing, the air conditioning, to the breaking point. That's what I feel. I hope that I am correct about that. At least the teachers that I know personally are like that. So, there's a lot of unintended consequences here. So yes, it looks like it's a little bit extreme, Mr. Booth, my proposal. But I think that it's probably the best way to go about it for the short term, until we are able to develop a new, instead of continuing with this current policy, that it's uncomfortable. And if our teachers are not teaching, our kids are not learning, that's the core mission. That needs to be addressed immediately, even if we are going to later on adopt a policy.
I just want to make clear, though, that just because if a teacher says, I have to have it at 65 to be comfortable, I would push back at that.
Well, we could.
But it can't be 85.
But that could be done with...
That's the issue that's happening now. And my biggest problem is that folks don't feel like they can come forward and talk, and that when they do come forward, that it's not being addressed properly. And I'm getting that too much. If I get that one or two times I look into it, I see what's going on. But when I can develop a theme, and I don't blame anyone individually. I get what they're tasked with doing. We've said save money. You're telling them save money. I guess what I'm saying now is let's not do it in the air conditioner realm anymore.
Mr. Weiser?
So I'll start by saying that I appreciate where both of you are, and I agree with what your intended outcome is here, and I'll more than likely be supporting an overall adjustment from a procedural standpoint of trying to get to the end result that you guys want to achieve. I think, though, at the same time, there's a couple of key things, and really my light's really actually because I want to talk and hear from the superintendent a little bit on this. there isn't a policy. The school board didn't set a policy around this. This is just an operational procedure component. So there's no policy rescission that we can work through because there's none that exists. But I understand the context of what we're saying. I do think it's important to note, though, that there are a number of pieces and parts that the superintendent and staff have put in place to try to mitigate some of this. And trust me, nothing I'm saying is any bit contrary to anything you said, not one bit, although it may sound that way on the surface. I just want to make sure that as we have this conversation and we move it forward and we find what the right answer is, that we don't swing too hard or too far in any one direction to the negative of either side of it, to your point about 50 degrees or 85 degrees. I do think it's right to hear from the superintendent on some of the pieces and parts that you've been putting in place, how you've been trying to work through and mitigate and respond to some of the concerns that are out there. I understand as well that maybe there is a need for an increased level of response and urgency regarding some of the complaints or concerns that board members have heard, particularly as Mr. Booth had pointed out. So, Chair, I just want to yield my time for now and allow the superintendent to speak on some of this so that I can hear her perspective on it openly, as opposed to what I've heard in our personal conversations.
Maybe we could hear Ms. Castillo and then.
Yeah, and that's fine.
I've got a comment too, but if we let Terry go, then I'll go. And then.
Yeah, thank you so much. So a couple things. I think we have all received either phone calls or emails from concerns, parents, teachers, and staff regarding the air conditioner. So I would have to agree with both Mr. Soto and Mr. Booth with regards to the issue. And I do agree that we should have a large conversation about it, which does include data. And I also agree that it's possible that we may need to change, I guess it's not a policy, the operational strategy. Fine. But I think the conversation was specifically started with regards to the strategic plan. And so I think we're talking about two different things here. So I'm curious to know from Dr. Pace if the measures that were implemented to increase the air conditioner to save a specific amount, because you give us a very specific amount of money that would be saved, if that is included in metric or goal 3B. Okay, so then, yeah, we definitely need to table this. That was my question. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't, that we weren't talking about two different things here. But I am open to the discussion, of course.
Yeah, and that's why I had referenced 3B, because I knew where this was going to go based on the agenda items are being added. And I want to make sure that we as a board kind of looked at this at a holistic perspective. And I think whichever board member made the comment of saying, let's wait before we vote on this before we do it, because this whole conversation may change that particular metric that we're looking
at. I understand that. I just looking at the strategic goal itself, the figures that are in there, I just wanted to make sure that those were included in the figures that were giving to us. That's what I'm concerned about. Clearly they are, so we can go ahead and continue the conversation.
I guess the thing that's had me scratching my head since we went down this path is the problem is not the 2 degrees we turn the thermostats up. Yeah. The problem is we can't get it back to anything below 85. So in a lot of cases, or 82 or something. And I don't believe, I think there's something a little more inherent to our procedure than just where we've set the thermostats. And it may be by taking complete control away from the schools. I don't know what it is, but moving the thermostats up 2 degrees did not cause the thermostats to all quit working. And and I think it was Mr. Booth, and one of them that said, I don't care what the thermostat's set on, it's the temperature in the room that matters. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to give the savings up. I am the first person sitting up here probably who cannot stand to be hot. And if I'm hot at work, it doesn't go that well. So I understand that. And I guess what I'm trying to get to is if what we have to do is roll it back, we roll it back. I'm fine with that. But what I'd like to do is figure out why we can't turn the thermostats up 2 degrees and only go up 2 degrees and not 12. So.
My turn?
Yep, your turn.
Okay, just a couple of things that I want to start with. Number one, remember that we did commit to energy savings as a part of our salary plan to get to that 2.5% raise. It's also considered in the budget that we've just approved, along with the strategic plan. There are other ways to conserve energy. For example, we can start looking at small appliances and those types of things across the district. But those are usually bigger pain points for folks than a degree or two of temperature. We have been for 19 years shutting air down on the weekends. So that really didn't change all that much. And as we have modernized HVAC equipment and chiller systems, there has been a concentration of more controls in our departments with facilities and maintenance. Correct, Mr. Clinch?
Yes.
It's been a long time since individual teachers or principals could adjust the temperature in their classroom, their office, or their building unless they were in a portable. Okay?
I don't know that.
But I know those are things that, we're all learning as we dig into this and get to a more systematic approach. There were more liberal requests for run times for open gym on the weekends and those types of things. And so we've been looking at those more carefully and making sure that it's justified to have those longer times. We're continuing to adjust the air, and I'm very I'm concerned, Mr. Booth, if as you are, if they don't feel like they're getting responses, because every work order, somebody's out there. But we do have a limited team of folks who can go out and fix this equipment, and we have had 3 vacancies in HVAC technicians for months, trying to fill them because we're competing with Folsom Electric and other places who are able to pay a much higher rate than we are for those same level of workers. We've gone to contracting with subs who can provide the services as opposed to trying to do it from our internal team. There's a cost to that, but also at the same time we're able to get the work done. We've had some really significant issues with systemic failures. Our new sites, Harmony Middle, Toho, and Michigan Avenue, we're still having some issues working out testing and balancing and commissioning to make sure that the designs of the systems are functioning appropriately, and we're continuing to address that. We finally learned at St. Cloud Middle School, because it's been going out recurringly, that their mud had washed into the chiller lines, and it was blocking the system of the cold water into the chiller to get the colder air out. They flush those all day today. We'll flush them every day until we get that stuff completely out of there. So there have been some of those types of issues. But I assure you, every time we get a work order, an email, a call from one of you or a teacher or a parent about a specific school or a classroom, our maintenance team is going out to check those things and will continue to do so. We'll happily commit to trying to look for other ways to save energy. But we dug deeply to find the savings that we committed to for the salary raises that we've increased, for the bonuses that we've just paid already, and we're happy to move forward doing that. But I think we need to have more information and maybe a workshop with you as a board about what we're doing, and we'll continue to aggressively look at making sure the temperatures are at 75 and not 78 or 85. But I also can tell you that this team has been out in schools, other than the hurricane week, walking classrooms, dressed like we're dressing each and every day. If we walked into a classroom and it was 85 degrees, they'd be on their cell phone to me, to Mark Cavaney, to somebody immediately to try to make sure that we're getting it fixed. So those are the things that I would suggest that we commit to now. And certainly if you want to walk away with goal 3B, or we can look at how we might revise that. But we've approved a budget.
What was our savings on the budget? $250,000 for the AC
no.
reduction?
No, it was higher than that. It was like 600 or 80.
Our target was to find 10 million, and that's what.
No, I
But
got
not
the
with
10 million. It's not all in
Okay.
AC costs.
And that initial set point was 76 degrees. It was reduced to 75 degrees as part of the union settlement. And I can't speak for the operations department, maintenance falls under, and they have the charge. But I was at the table when we were talking about the 3B strategy and trying to find those dollars so that we could shift those dollars to
And the
teacher
savings have been
salaries.
real. I mean, we've been reporting back to
I'm
you
not questioning
about
the
quarter
savings.
over
That's
quarter,
what I'm
they're there.
How much of the savings was attributed to the AC?
but I can tell you
not
can't-
not the lights and the.
You're going to put 400 or 500 people in a gym, you got to turn it down to like 65. Like, you can't put it at 75. That doesn't work. I mean, I know that. I know if I'm going to have a party at my house, that I can't put my AC at 74 if I want it to be 74 inside. If there's going to be 20 people show up, you have to set it lower. We all know this. We all know that if we're going to heat a whole huge facility, that we can't turn it on 30 minutes before school starts. That's probably not, and I don't know the real number, but whatever we're turning it on, it's probably not early enough. And so, and if rooms are steadily climbing during the day, maybe there's certain rooms that are face the sun, whether in the morning or in the afternoon. I get that, east and west. I understand all that. Well, then make those adjustments in those hallways or those rooms. It seems to me like I just want to feel like the staff can say to their principal or to our maintenance department without being, and I'm not saying they are. I'm not saying they are. I just want them to feel like they can do that, and it will happen, and it will happen fast. And because really we're talking about a thermostat setting. We're not in the end. So
As Mr. Just as Mr. Weissayer pointed out, the $2.8 million that the board has committed to tonight is our last priority one chiller at Point Siena. We were having such issues with that system coming up and down, so that now it's running full-time until we can get that chiller fixed. We may have to do the same thing at St. Cloud Middle School because of the complexities that we're having there and the age of that particular system. But what we've also found, as we've gone through some things, is that we have spaces that were converted to classrooms that were never meant to be classrooms, and so there was no air even being pumped in to those particular classrooms. We've just committed this week to a maintenance project at St. Cloud High School to fix one of those spaces, and we've put in cool spots, or what are they called?
Spot cools.
Spot
It's
cools,
a
cool
temporary
spots, spot
AC
cools
unit.
in other spaces that we've identified until we can figure it out.
Right.
So, that's the thing I want you to know, is that the team is responding. If we're not getting there fast enough, I'll continue to work on it. I can assure you we'll be looking at it tomorrow.
And it's not just temperature set points. If I can add, in addition to the spaces that were converted over the years that Dr. Pace spoke to, that didn't have the corresponding AC improvements completed. Some of those are classrooms that were converted to computer labs that now have all this latent heat load. Other areas, storage rooms that were converted to classrooms.
Why did this all come to light when we changed the temperature?
Because back in the day, we could set the temperature as low as was needed to get that residual cooling to take care of those spaces. So now that we're at a more aggressive temperature set point of 75, that residual cooling in those spaces is not occurring. The other challenge that we're having...
You just answered the question. I don't mean to interrupt you. You just answered the question.
But if we want to talk about saving money, we also need to be talking about commissioning and retro commissioning. Just because you install an AC system at a school 5 or 10 years ago doesn't mean that it's going to continue to operate at the same efficiency rate. These units get out of whack, and it takes retro commissioning to go in to see what's going on to get those units dialed back in. So we have a meeting coming up next week to talk about our energy strategies, and that is one strategy that we're looking at, to go out with a separate commissioning for the new schools, because we're having challenges with controls at the new schools, and I'll talk about that in a minute, and also retro commissioning at these older existing schools. And it's a few dollars that we're going to have to spend up front, but the savings that we can generate from retro commissioning is astounding. Now, the other challenge that we're having is our controls platform. We have what's called a lawn platform, and it's based on how our standards are written, such that there is only one controls contractor that's able to do this work. So we're working with our maintenance department, and we're looking to go to a BACnet platform, which would open that up to many more contractors, because the challenge that we're having at our new schools is that one controls contractor is not able to keep up with all the work. We're still having issues at Toho High School with our controls, Neo City Academy, Harmony Middle School, Michigan Avenue. So we need to dial that in as well. Thank you.
Mr. Weishaar, you okay?
Yeah. I'm hot.
You don't look.
Okay.
You don't look okay.
I thought you'd already made your comment.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You can turn it off. Sorry.
Okay.
So there's number one, I think there's an important note to make, and Mr. Clinch just pointed it out, and Dr. Pace and I talked about it earlier today, and I do think this is important to note. The staff is working to try to find reliefs and mechanisms and approaches to mitigate some of our concerns. And I just don't want us to be so caught up in the emotion and our awe. By the way, I think we're all in the same place of what we want this end result to be. You may be even here tonight. But I don't want the emotion of our frustration to glaze over the fact that there is a high degree of intentionality being deployed to try to mitigate these things. However, I would respect that the results of that may not be happening fast enough for anybody's liking on this dais or across the district. My concern, I guess, or my question, not concern, my question, Dr. Pace, would be, as we sit here, I don't want the board to take a position. So first of all, we have to bear in mind the fact that we've already negotiated and already dealt with some of these pieces, and we've already worked through some of this, and have already looked at the financial implications and benefits that are awarded or received as a result of this approach. That can't be lost on this board. However, my concern would be, what are the solutions? You hear, I think, what I hear, which is that the board is at a position tonight where it may be an about face, and I'm concerned that that's not the right approach, that there has to be somewhere in the middle. And so I'm looking to you for a little bit of help or guidance on what is, if anything, that middle strategy that could be used for us to still work towards what all of our, I believe everybody in the district's desired stated goal is, which is we can increase operational efficiency. It frees up additional capital for us to invest in classrooms and salaries and benefits and so on. We can't abandon the goal in and of itself. It's an important part of what it is we're trying to do and where we want to go and how we're trying to lead this district. But at the same time, we can't continue to have facilities or concerns that we're having. So help me find a solution or something in the middle. And I'll throw this one last comment out before I turn to you for the answer to the question. If we put our current process on hold for a season, for a week, 3 weeks, a month, 6 weeks, whatever that is, so that we can kind of regroup and layer some additional approaches on this, does that work? Does it mitigate what the concerns of the board that have been expressed are? And then number two, I think it's important, Ms. Graber and Dr. Pace, what is the financial implication that the board's going to have to be willing to deal with as a result of taking such a position? So I don't want us to be too extreme till we say this is exactly what we're doing, we have to stay there, and we go in the total opposite direction, just shut down everything and say this is what we're going to do now. So I'm looking for a middle ground here.
Steve?
Yes, thank you. I guess just to kind of continue your point, once again, I do understand the concerns because I think I had this conversation with some of the board members. My own child has formally written to me as a board member asking, it's true, she's a very involved student. You know, she has written to me with regards to the temperature, so it isn't lost on me, not only with the parents that I serve in District 1, but also with my own child, who, by the way, she's yours. So I'm going to ask her to write you a letter. Oxa. So.
I'll bet you can get to it.
No, so to lighten the mood a bit, I guess. None of this is lost on me. I understand it's not, and I don't think it's an emotional issue at all. I think that it is definitely a real, even logical issue, and it might even bleed into some of the other aspects of the strategic plan, as some of you guys alluded. I would say with regards to talent management, right? If our staff isn't happy, it might present itself in different ways. I get that. However, some of the concerns that I have, not concerns, but I guess questions, right, that I would have are, if we decide that we are not going to continue with this operation strategy and we are going to change the way that we manage our air conditioning, we know there is going to be an increase in operating dollars, right? That's a bottom line. You did mention that there are some other ways that we can go ahead and mitigate that and still fulfill the, I guess, the goals that we have already started to unfold. We've already paid out some of this money that we have promised ourselves, right? So just to go with Mr. Weisire's point, what are the pain points? You said that those pain points weren't popular. Great. This isn't either. So I would love to know what those pain points are, and then we would have to make a decision as to whether or not we're going to live with maybe a different email instead of I'm too hot. Maybe the email will be something else. That is something that I don't know if you guys are aware of, right? I am not. So I would like to at least have a study or something that tells me this, if we stop this particular operating strategy, this is how we're going to make up for whatever the difference is going to be. I don't think we can stop it, and I don't think that we should put it on hold. And here's why: because if we put it on hold for a moment, we decide we're going to go ahead and start the strategy again. Well, we have just caused, I think, another issue. So either we completely stop this operational strategy and find another way to make up for that loss, or we don't. I'm not okay with putting it on pause for however long to see how it unfolds.
Another pain point I don't even want to talk about because I might get beat up when I go home.
Mm-hmm.
So I
gotta
know
do
what-
something.
I know
We
what
can't
it
not
is
do
that
anything.
Dr. Pace is talking about, and I'm not bringing that one up. But I agree. I actually kind of agree with Tim on this one. The reason that I came in a little hot and bothered on this.
Unintended.
Was that because I brought it up August 20th, and because I haven't seen the needle move. So when I bring something up here, and the board kind of nods their head in agreement, I want to see the needle move, and I haven't seen that, Mr. Weisshire, and that's kind of why I'm here on the position that I'm in. Dr. Pace knows, because I've expressed this to her. Some of the email correspondence that I have seen, I have not liked at all. The tone and tenor of those emails is not correct.
There was one of them, and I addressed it.
I know, but I can imagine if it was one, I know what's been going on. So we've had that discussion. That's all I'm going to say. I think we've got to come up with something. But we also can't have rooms at 82, 83, 84.
Do we have a school that it's working, where nobody is screaming and complaining? Does anybody know? Or one or two or three?
I think we just have a handful that it's not working at, and that's been my.
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure. Or is it not working in one single school?
I've only gotten emails from one particular school.
Mine
But I don't know.
Mine are concentrated to one. Well, two. I'm not talking about the failures. Failures are different.
Yeah, I'm not.
Than actual temperatures. Mine's actually concentrated mostly to one, and that's kind of been my issue, is why we can't get that handled, because it's one school. Turn it down.
Well, that's kind of where I was going. If we've only got 4 schools, can we turn those down if the others are functioning? And work our way back through it.
If I may offer potentially a strategy that would take us forward. Okay. First of all, I can't just tomorrow flick one switch, and adjust it down to everybody gets to do whatever they want, or it's 70 degrees or 72 degrees. Those are all individually controlled, because as Mr. Clinch said, our overall system is not as sophisticated as some, but it's better than it might be. But I will work with the team tomorrow to, again, see where we can't do that. What I would also ask is that for each of you tonight, before you leave here, if there's a particular school that you're hearing from, let me know what that is, so I can make sure somebody's there in the morning. And we'll do that. That's what we've done typically. That's what we did, for example, at Celebration K-8, until we got it fixed, until we got it resolved. That's a place where we're changing we approved money today. That's a project. It's not a switch, because there are rooms that have been used for things that they weren't intended for, that didn't even have, whatever you call it, air to go out. Okay? The vents. All right? Obviously, this is not my area of expertise, but we'll aggressively work on those. I've got a student focus group next week with students from every single high school. We've got a teacher focus group and a principal focus group coming up in just the next couple of weeks. We'll get their input on what it is that they are experiencing, what problems that they see, what would they recommend, and also, are they willing to give up the microwave, the coffee machine, the toaster?
That's the conversation I want to have.
Versus the air conditioning, or not? And if not, where else would they help us see that we might find salary savings? I will just caution you again.
If we have to go back and we lose $600,000, it's going to have a salary impact next year.
Particularly because we are under projected enrollment. So we reduced allocations over the course of the last 2 weeks as much as we can. You can never get to a pure, this kid's not here, so this teacher, goes away. We're not losing any teachers. They're simply being moved around. But at the same time, we're not totally where we are. So there are going to be some other areas where we're going to have to tighten our belts in a tight budget year. But I will pledge to you, number one, to have somebody at every school that you identify for me tonight as a problem tomorrow. We'll walk every classroom. I'll have a staff member go with the maintenance person so we can make sure that nobody's hanging the thermometer up here in front of the vent.
On the sun window.
We'll go back in the afternoon if that's what we need to do to try to get to the bottom of those situations and then bring back some additional recommendations as we move forward. And the waste management piece, nobody cares how often we dump the dumpster as long as it doesn't stink. And we're finding some good gains there. We've already found some other gains in just ways that the run times are better than they were, and that's helping. So we'll look at the temperature piece and see what else we can do. That's all I can commit to you.
So can we hold off on voting on the strategic plan till the next meeting, just to see if what you find out? One question.
Look, I think we need to commit. I'd be fine with go ahead, and I'll even make the motion to approve the strategic plan, because we do need to find that 5% somewhere. I understand, and if we don't do it this year, it'll happen next year when we start having salary negotiations and those kind of things. But I would commit to it, and it's one of those things. We'll just know that we don't have to hold Dr. Pace to it if we decide to make her turn the air down.
We'll find it somewhere if you're willing to commit to it. I believe it's a good plan. I just think we have to figure out how to make it work.
If history has taught us anything, very famous quote, historical figures who said, let them eat cake. I suggest we do not follow the same path.
Were you making a motion?
I made a motion to approve the
Second.
Second, okay.
Did you?
Two seconds.
I have a motion by Mr. Booth with a second by Ms. Castillo to approve the strategic plan, which is item I've lost.
November will be here, and then we want this discussion.
Which is item 16.01. Any further discussion on it? Mr. Weishaupt?
Yeah, I just want to be clear, because I understand what you guys are doing with the approval of strategic plan, which I'm going to vote very much in favor of, but I don't know, I guess what I want to see is that the superintendent just outlined some ideas and strategies. Is the board all in agreement with supporting those?
Absolutely.
Not doing anything else at this moment? So, because to your point earlier, these really are tied together, but yet two very distinct items at the same time. Yeah. So I just want to...
So I brought up this topic, but it's not one that was unique. I think it's been in all of our minds. The whole purpose was so that we could have this discussion as a board, all right? If I think that we're ready to approve this plan, I agree with what you're saying, is that we're also agreeing, with the superintendent and district staff and their proposals or whatever schemes or methods they're going to use to make this a reality. Hopefully taking into account all of the things that were brought up, especially by Mr. Booth, about, what are the technical impediments, obstacles that are preventing us from actually, the vision of what we had about, we should just be going 2 degrees lower, not having all of these crazy things going on.
Correct.
So we haven't even accomplished that yet. So figure out how we're going to get there and get us there, and hopefully we'll see the savings as well.
Had a motion by Mr. Booth, second by Ms. Castillo, for item 18.01 to approve the strategic plan. 16. I'm sorry. 1601. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries 5-0. That took care of both of your new business.
No, I do have new business. It's different.
Oh, okay.
But it will not take as long, I promise.
Okay.
We didn't approve his other...
Yes, you did approve mine.
Did we? Don't forget 18.02, sir.
Yeah, we got to do
Yeah.
What about Frank?
Well,
Skip
none, I'm just trying to figure out if we still had yours. I wasn't going to it.
So what are we?
Frank, do you have any?
No reports.
No reports. That brings us to item 18.02,
Which is this?
which is the blue sheeted item.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Booth, second by Ms. Castillo to approve item 18.02. Mr. Soto,
Yeah,
question?
just comment, I just want to put it on the verbal record. So what we're doing here is we're having 2 makeup days.
We're not having any makeup
Don't
days.
have any makeup.
The opposite.
Where are the makeup days at?
They're
Or
not.
not.
You know,
We're not
there's
making
enough
them.
contact hours already in place within our calendar.
But I also wanted to say that is because of Dr. Pace and her team's work and not having schools at that lowest level and having enough hours in the day and all those kind of things that give us the ability to do that.
The changes to the calendar, Mr. Soto, are in bold on the blue sheeted item. That's the actual calendar, where it says September's 3rd and 4th, Hurricane Dorian, student, staff, non-attendance day, because we have adequate minutes in our instructional schedule to meet the requirements of the state. I just would add a reminder that additional days missed during hurricane season will most likely result in having to do makeup days. But at this time, we have met the state requirement as long as the board approves the modified calendar. And students and staff would not be harmed in any way. No one loses pay. We can pay the people who did have to work in shelters and those types of things extra.
Now I understood.
Took you that long?
Yeah, it did. There wasn't no.
I made a motion. I don't know who made the second.
That's Ms. Castillo. Ms. Castillo, we have a motion by Mr. Booth, second by Ms. Castillo.
Yeah, I just want the
Oh, I'm
board,
sorry,
I'm
thank
gonna vote in favor of this because it makes our student representative as happy as it does.
Oh,
I don't know if you
I saw
noticed,
her.
but she's
She
over here
does.
dancing.
We still have makeup days, as Dr.
There'll be
Pace
another
stated.
hurricane come.
Yeah, be careful. what you
This is
ask
for you.
Yeah.
Okay. All
Makeup days just because we should.
Yeah.
all those in favor
you're
signify
not-
by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries 5-0. Brings us to item 19. Mr. Booth, you still had an
Yep,
item.
and
you
that was
wanted
it.
to-
I just wanted to bring this up, and board, I kind of alluded to it a little bit when I added it to the agenda. You know, like I said, we have changed the design of our schools.
The windows don't open.
I know that's my point. The windows don't open and the doors have to stay locked. So, board, we're talking about when we have AC failures at schools, we have zero airflow. Whether it's hot, cold, anything, it's basically you're in a hot box. And so I'm not asking for anything to happen here today. I would just ask that, is there possibly a way that we look at, hey, we've got an AC failure in a wing or a school, that we can get kids to a place where there's some airflow, even if it's outside. I mean, I come from a guy who works outside every day. I understand the heat. But being outside when it's 95 degrees under an oak tree is actually is a lot better than being in a classroom with no air conditioner and no air moving. So that's all I'm asking, is that we maybe, instead of saying, no, can't leave, doors have to be locked, windows don't open, have to sit in here and swelter. Nobody's learning anything because everybody's crying and sweating. So you might as well get them outside anyway. That's all I'm asking.
Working on it.
Okay.
Got it.
That it? Frank's, our attorney's sweating down there. Brings us to Destiny. Do you have any comments or questions or thoughts, or?
Thank you guys.
There you go.
You are welcome.
I have been taking notes throughout this meeting today, and I I did enjoy listening to all of your feedback and looking at the responses of the crowd when we were talking about the AC units. And I understand that there are a lot of problems within the school system that may not be brought to light as soon as possible because they may not be as big of issues. But I do intend to start reaching out to more students, not only in my school, but in other schools, to get their own input and seeing if I can get any teachers to speak about any issues that they find is wrong. So,
How's
that's
the air at
it.
your school?
It's good. It's actually great. I love the air at my
Okay.
school. I'm actually cold in my
Just
classroom.
turn it down at St. Cloud High School and we'll be fine.
I think what we need. I'm cold in my.
Turn it up, Dr. Pace.
Frank's over here sweating, she's got a sweater on.
But it's because my school is actually a very small school compared to a lot of the other schools in the county. Because I go to my student body, my senior class is only about 169 students compared to the around 600 or 800 at Osceola County. So I think I think what needs to be done is to prioritize the bigger schools, especially the ones with gyms and ones with a larger student body, because more bodies in one room take up a lot of heat. So I think it is a priority to make sure that the teachers, and not only the teachers, but the student are comfortable, because the teachers aren't going to want to go to work if they're sweating in their classroom.
What school are you
Destiny,
at?
what school?
sorry.
Professional and Technical High School.
TAPS.
Right over
Okay.
here.
People were asking. Your fan club.
So I'm glad that we were able to address that today, and I was glad that I could listen to all of your inputs on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That it?
Yeah.
Frank, did you look like you were going to say something?
Yes, I just think,
Oh, no.
before you leave tonight, I need to have you execute a release of everybody in the room for anything Mr. Weishauer has
Yeah,
done.
hold harmless, right? That's what it's called.
Yeah, I'm trying to pay attention over here, but
I'm helping her out.
Are you?
I am.
Mr. Thacker, if I could just ask the board's pleasure, I apologize, I didn't bring it up under my piece, but we would like to invite the board to schedule a health insurance workshop on October the 15th. It's a board meeting day at 3 p.m. That would allow us to bring all the partners to the table, Cigna as well as Rosen Medical Center, Mitigate Partners, and Proventure at the board's request. And also just a reminder, Tanya sent something out to you earlier, I believe, but the meeting that you discussed in your legislative priority session with the chair, Chris Latvala, in the House, he is available on October the 8th at 10 p.m. at Neo City Academy. At 10 a.m.
Like, are we?
It's been, I'm sorry.
I mean, I'm cool with it.
I'll make sure we have the AC on. 10 a.m., I apologize.
They turned them off at 3 o'clock.
10 p.m. I wear my hoodie, right?
Mr. Weishauer, your light is still on. Is that old?
I'm good.
Okay. Board, any other comments? If not, we will stand adjourned.
What's
Good.